Wormwood is coming and almost no one understands what it means. Right now, at this very moment, NASA is tracking objects in space that most people have never heard about. Objects from beyond our solar system. And buried in an ancient text, written nearly 2,000 years ago, there's a prophecy that describes something falling from the heavens. It's called Wormwood. You will be shocked when you discover 5 findings about Wormwood. Discovery 1. What Wormwood actually is. Turn with me to the book of Revelation, chapter 8. We're going to read verses 10 and 11, and I want you to pay attention to every single detail, because what John describes here is more specific than most people realize. Revelation 8, 10 to 11. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood. And many men died of the waters, because they were made bitter. Let me break down exactly what John is seeing here, because every phrase matters. The third angel sounded. This is the third trumpet judgment. Not the first, not the second. The third in a specific sequence of 7 trumpet judgments that occurred during the tribulation period. That sequence is critical. We'll come back to it in Discovery 4, but for now, understand that Wormwood doesn't happen in isolation. It's part of an escalating series of judgments, each one more severe than the last. There fell a great star from heaven. A great star. The Greek word is Esther megas, a large, significant celestial body. Not a small meteor, not space debris, something massive enough to be described as great. From heaven. From the celestial realm, from space, from beyond Earth's atmosphere. This is an extraterrestrial object, using that term in its proper astronomical sense. Something originating outside Earth. And it fell. Past tense in John's vision, future tense in our timeline. It's coming down, descending, burning as it were a lamp. This is one of the most specific details, and it tells us something crucial about the nature of this object. It's not just falling, it's burning, actively burning, generating light and heat, glowing like a lamp or torch as it descends. When objects enter Earth's atmosphere at high speeds, friction creates heat. They burn up, creating the shooting stars we see at night. But John's description suggests this object is burning before atmospheric entry, or the burning is so intense that it's visible from a great distance. This could mean several things. The object is approaching the sun and being heated, causing volatile materials to burn off. The object is moving at such extreme speeds that it's generating visible heat. The object has an unusual composition that causes it to burn differently than normal space rocks. Keep this detail in mind. It becomes important when we discuss what this object actually is. It fell upon the third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of waters. Now here's where it gets very specific. The target isn't random. It's not cities. It's not land masses. It's not the oceans. It's rivers and fountains of waters. Fresh water sources. The places where rivers originate. The springs and aquifers that feed water systems. The Greek word potamos means flowing water, rivers, streams, and pej means springs, fountains, sources, the origin points of water. John is describing an impact or effect that specifically targets fresh water sources. Not all water, not salt water, fresh water, the water that humans need to survive. And notice the fraction. 1/3. Not all of it. Not most of it. 1/3. This is a specific, measured judgment. Enough to cause catastrophic consequences, but not total annihilation. Not yet. The name of the star is called Wormwood. This is fascinating. John doesn't say, "I decided to call it Wormwood." He says the name of the star is called Wormwood, as if the name already exists, as if this object has been named before it falls. The Greek word is absinthos, wormwood. This refers to a plant, Artemisia absinthium, known for being intensely bitter and toxic in large quantities. Wormwood was used in the ancient world as medicine in small doses, but consuming large amounts could cause seizures, kidney failure, and death. It was synonymous with bitterness and suffering. In the Old Testament, wormwood appears multiple times as a symbol of judgment, calamity, and God's displeasure. Deuteronomy 29:18. Lest there should be among you man, or woman, or family, or tribe, whose heart turneth away this day from the Lord our God, to go and serve the gods of these nations, lest there should be among you a root that beareth gall and wormwood. Proverbs 5:4. But her end is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Jeremiah 9:15. Therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, Behold, I will feed them, even this people, with wormwood, and give them water of gall to drink. Throughout Scripture, wormwood represents bitterness, suffering, judgment, and poison. So when John sees this star and identifies it as wormwood, he's connecting it to this entire biblical tradition of judgment and calamity. The third part of the waters became wormwood. The waters don't just get contaminated, they become wormwood. They take on the characteristics of this bitter, toxic substance. They become undrinkable, poisonous, deadly. Think about the significance of this. Water is essential for human life. You can survive weeks without food. But without water? 3 days. Maybe a week in ideal conditions. That's it. And John is describing 1/3 of the world's fresh water becoming poisoned, unusable, deadly to drink. In our modern world, that would mean billions of people without access to safe drinking water. Agricultural collapse as crops can't be irrigated. Livestock dying from contaminated water. Industrial and economic systems failing. Mass migration as populations flee poisoned water sources. Wars over remaining clean water resources. Disease outbreaks from lack of sanitation. 1/3 of fresh water being poisoned doesn't just cause inconvenience, it causes civilizational collapse. Many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. The final result: death. Not everyone dies. John doesn't say all men died, but many, a significant portion of the population. And notice the cause: because they were made bitter. The bitterness, the toxicity, the poison, the contamination is what kills them. People are thirsty. The vegetation is already destroyed from the first trumpet. The oceans are already contaminated from the second trumpet. Fresh water is the only resource left. So they drink, even though the water tastes wrong, even though it's bitter, because they have no choice. And slowly, over days or weeks, the poison accumulates. The toxins build up, organs fail, and they die. Not from the impact itself, not from immediate catastrophe, but from drinking the water, from consuming what has become wormwood. Why water? the question you need to ask. Now, before we move on, I need you to ask yourself a question. Why does this judgment specifically target water? God could judge humanity in countless ways. Why contaminate water specifically? Why make it bitter specifically? Why 1/3 specifically? That question is more significant than you realize. And we're going to answer it fully in Discovery 5. But for now, keep it in mind. Because the fact that God chooses to judge through water contamination reveals something profound about the spiritual nature of the judgment. But first, we need to address something critical, because most people who have heard of Wormwood get it completely wrong. Discovery 2. Why everyone gets this wrong. For nearly 2,000 years, believers have read Revelation 8 and tried to figure out what wormwood means. And for nearly 2,000 years, most interpretations have been wrong. Let me show you the 4 major misinterpretations, because I can almost guarantee you've heard at least one of these. And you need to understand why they don't work. Misinterpretation number 1, pure symbolism. This is probably the most common interpretation among modern scholars and liberal theologians. They say wormwood is purely symbolic. It's not a literal star, not a literal impact, not literal poisoned water. According to this view, wormwood represents spiritual bitterness, false teaching, apostasy, or the corrupting influence of sin. The star is a fallen leader or false prophet. The waters are people or nations. The bitterness is spiritual corruption. Why this doesn't work? First, the context. Revelation 8 is describing physical judgments with measurable effects. The first trumpet burns up 1/3 of trees and grass. That's physical. The second trumpet turns 1/3 of the sea to blood and kills 1/3 of sea creatures. That's physical. Why would the third trumpet suddenly be purely symbolic while the others are literal? Third, the death toll. John says many men died, not many fell away spiritually, or many were corrupted morally. Died. That's physical death, not symbolic spiritual death. The pure symbolism interpretation requires ignoring the context, dismissing the specificity, and redefining death as something other than actual death. It doesn't work. Misinterpretation number 2. Already happened historically. Some commentators have tried to identify wormwood with historical events. Various candidates have been proposed: the fall of the Roman Empire, the star being a corrupt leader, various heresies that poisoned the early church, specific barbarian invasions, natural disasters throughout history, various wars and catastrophes. Why this doesn't work? None of these events match all the details. None involved a celestial object falling from heaven. None contaminated 1/3 of the world's rivers and springs. None fit within the sequential context of the 7 trumpet judgments. If wormwood already happened, then the first 2 trumpets also already happened, since wormwood is the third. But we have no historical record of 1/3 of Earth's vegetation being destroyed and 1/3 of the ocean turning to blood in that sequence. The historical interpretation fails because no past event fits all the criteria. Misinterpretation number 3. Nuclear warfare allegory. This is a more modern interpretation. Some claim wormwood represents nuclear war. The star is a nuclear missile or bomb. The bitterness is radiation. The contaminated water is nuclear fallout poisoning water supplies. Why this doesn't work? While this interpretation at least recognizes wormwood as a future, physical event, it still misses key details. Nuclear weapons don't fall from heaven in the astronomical sense. They're terrestrial, launched from Earth, targeting Earth. A missile isn't a star. Nuclear contamination would affect all water in the blast area, not specifically 1/3 of rivers and springs globally. The pattern is wrong. The description of burning like a lamp doesn't match nuclear detonation. That would be described as blinding light or consuming fire, not a lamp. Most importantly, Revelation distinguishes between human warfare and divine judgment. The trumpet judgments are God's direct action, not human weapons being used. Nuclear warfare might occur during the tribulation, but it's not what Wormwood describes. Misinterpretation number 4. The Chernobyl connection. This is the interpretation that sounds most convincing to most people, so I need to spend more time on it. April 26, 1986. Reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine explodes. It's the worst nuclear disaster in human history. Massive amounts of radioactive material are released into the atmosphere. The surrounding area becomes uninhabitable. Water supplies are contaminated. People die from radiation exposure. And here's what captured everyone's attention. The word Chernobyl in Ukrainian and Russian literally translates to wormwood. The same plant, the same word. When this connection became known, many Christians immediately said, "This is it. This is wormwood. The prophecy has been fulfilled." But here's the problem. Here's why Chernobyl, despite its name, is not the wormwood of Revelation 8. Why Chernobyl doesn't fit. Let's go back to Revelation 8:10-11 and check each detail. There fell a great star from heaven. Chernobyl was not a star. It was not from heaven. It was a man-made reactor built on the ground that exploded. Nothing fell from the sky, burning as it were a lamp. The Chernobyl explosion did burn and release radioactive material, but it wasn't a celestial object burning as it descended. The fire was terrestrial. It fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. Chernobyl affected a regional area, primarily around northern Ukraine and southern Belarus. It did not impact 1/3 of the world's rivers and springs. The Pripyat River was contaminated. Some groundwater was affected, but 1/3 of global fresh water? Not even close. Many men died. The official death toll from Chernobyl is contested, but estimates range from 4,000 to 60,000 deaths, when including long-term cancer deaths. That's significant regionally, but not the global catastrophe that many men in Revelation suggests. When Revelation says many in the context of global judgment, it's talking about millions, possibly billions. Moreover, Chernobyl doesn't fit the sequential context. The first trumpet, 1/3 of vegetation destroyed, didn't happen before Chernobyl. The second trumpet, 1/3 of sea turned to blood, didn't happen before Chernobyl. The fourth trumpet, 1/3 of sun, moon, and stars darkened, didn't happen after Chernobyl. Chernobyl was not the third trumpet. It was not wormwood. Chernobyl gave us a glimpse, a limited, regional glimpse, of the global catastrophe that's coming. It showed us that water contamination on a large scale is possible, that it can happen suddenly, that it's devastating when it occurs. But Chernobyl was not the fulfillment. It was the warning of what's to come. So if all these interpretations are wrong, what is wormwood actually? What kind of celestial object could fall from heaven, burn like a lamp, and specifically poison 1/3 of Earth's fresh water? For most of history, that question was unanswerable. People could speculate, but there was no scientific framework for understanding what John described. Until now. Because in the last decade, scientists have discovered something that changes everything. Something that explains exactly what Wormwood could be. Something that makes this ancient prophecy not just possible, but scientifically plausible. And that's what we need to discuss next.